Welcome to the Inner Fortress. Today we are exploring the dark psychology of human trafficking of the mind. The chain of betrayal, why toxic people hand off their targets with the help of systematic exploitation. Psychological vulnerability is rarely created overnight. It is often meticulously engineered during childhood. When a child is strictly prohibited from socializing, locked away from peers without explanation, the brain labels this as arbitrary control. But the deeper damage is invisible. Extreme domestic isolation strips an individual of a vital survival mechanism, the ability to develop a natural radar for human malice. When an isolated individual finally steps into the world, high intelligence and childhood achievements often make them a magnet for both intense envy and predatory attraction. Because their boundaries were never allowed to form naturally, they enter social circles blind to a dangerous phenomenon in dark psychology, the predatory network. In mainstream psychology, we are taught to look out for individual abusers. But dark psychology reveals a much more sinister pattern, the chain of custody betrayal. This occurs when an initial manipulator recognizes a target's deep emotional vulnerability, but chooses not to exploit it directly. Instead, they willingly redirect, orchestrate, or hand off the target to a secondary predator. This handoff is calculated. The first predator acts as a scout, analyzing the target's unrequited affection, and then passes them to a secondary individual who initiates the grooming phase. Over years, this person offers zero moral support, gradually breaking down the victim's psychological defenses until they are completely crushed, unable to focus on their studies, career, or future. Once this predator has drained the target's emotional utility, the cycle repeats. They pass the target down the chain to a third predator who uses lies, infidelity, and profound betrayal to systematically break the victim's remaining mental health. Parallel to this linear chain, the network often deploys secondary manipulation tactics. Other individuals enter the periphery, acting under the illusion of romantic interest. These are predators who seek physical intimacy, secret encounters, and hidden validation while refusing to compromise their existing public relationships. They demand the benefits of devotion while denying the target basic dignity or public acknowledgement. When these peripheral attempts face resistance, the rejection triggers an ego injury. In toxic networks, an injured ego doesn't walk away, it redirects. The rejected individual passes the target's profile to yet another agent in the social circle. Even individuals who failed to breach the target's boundaries a decade prior are reintroduced into the ecosystem years later, waiting for the perfect moment of vulnerability to strike. The most terrifying realization of this psychological phenomenon is that it often circles right back to where it began. The target, desperate for safety, seeks refuge in the original childhood friend, only to realize the entire local ecosystem was complicit. What the victim experiences in this scenario is not a series of disconnected heartbreaks. It is a structured, community-level psychological assault. It is the systematic extraction of a person's goodness, innocence, and vitality by a group acting like a pack. They take everything, leave the individual with nothing, and count on the collective shame and confusion to keep the victim completely silent. To survive and heal from a multi-layered network betrayal, the mind must undergo a massive cognitive restructuring, deconstruct the echo chamber, realize that the failure was never yours. The collusion of multiple people does not validate their actions. It only proves the depth of their collective pathology.
Game over.
Acknowledge the predatory blueprint, understand that your childhood isolation made you an open target, and your high achievements made you a prize. They targeted your light because of their internal darkness. Radical severance, total healing, requires cutting off not just the active abusers, but the entire geographical and social ecosystem connected to them. True safety is found in clean, unmonitored spaces where your past cannot be whispered about. When a network tries to erase your worth, your survival becomes your greatest act of defiance. The chain ends the moment you refuse to let their systemic cruelty define your capacity to rebuild.